I never thought I'd become the guy who caught his wife with another man. But here I am, telling you the story of the night that shattered my entire world. Subscribe and tell me in the comments what you would do if you were in my shoes. It started like any other evening. I came home late from work, tired, drained, and honestly just looking forward to dinner and maybe a quiet night with my wife, Emily. But when I walked in, the house felt off. The lights were dim, her car was in the driveway, but the living room was empty. No TV playing in the background, no sound of her moving around. Just silence. I called her name once, then twice. No answer. I figured maybe she was in the shower or upstairs. But something in my gut told me to look around. That's when I noticed it, the faint sound of laughter coming from the guest bedroom. My heart stopped. I stood there frozen, my mind racing. Who could she possibly be laughing with? We don't really have people over without telling each other. Slowly, I crept closer. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the door, I heard it clearly, her voice. And a man's. The sound of her giggling, the kind of giggle she used to reserve just for me. My chest tightened, my hands started to shake, and I felt the ground beneath me slipping away. I can't even describe the mix of rage, disbelief, and heartbreak that hit me all at once. Every instinct told me to throw the door open right then and there, but I hesitated. Because if I did, my life would never be the same again. And that's when I realized. Maybe it already wasn't. Should I have opened that door right away? Or was it better to wait? Looking back now, the truth was always there, I just refused to see it. They say hindsight is 20/20, and for me, every little red flag feels like a knife twisting deeper because I ignored them all. Emily used to be glued to her phone, but not in the casual scrolling way. She guarded it. If I walked into the room, she'd tilt the screen away. If a message buzzed at night, she'd say it was just a friend from work. I wanted to believe her. After all, she was my wife. You don't marry someone thinking they'll betray you like this. Then there were the late nights. At first, it made sense. Overtime, projects, deadlines. She's a graphic designer, so I thought maybe she was just putting in extra effort for her clients. But it wasn't just once or twice. It became a routine. And when she'd finally crawl into bed, she smelled faintly of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. I'd joke about it sometimes, asking if she was seeing someone. She'd laugh it off, kiss my cheek, and say, "Don't be silly, babe." And I'd laugh too, because the alternative was too painful to even consider. There was also the change in intimacy. She used to be warm, affectionate, quick to hug me when I came home. But lately, she felt distant, distracted, like her body was here but her mind was somewhere else. Or maybe with someone else. And yet, I stayed blind. I told myself marriages go through phases, that maybe we just needed a vacation, more time together. I convinced myself she was just stressed, that work was draining her. But deep down, I think I knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Because admitting it meant accepting the possibility that my marriage was already falling apart. Little did I know, the cracks I kept ignoring were about to split wide open, and I was about to see the truth in the worst possible way. At some point, even the best lies start to fall apart. And Emily's excuses. They stopped making sense altogether. One night, she told me she was going out with her friend Claire. Harmless enough, right? But when I casually mentioned it to Claire's boyfriend a few days later, he gave me a confused look. "What do you mean?" Claire was homesick all week. My stomach dropped. I laughed it off in the moment, but inside, I knew something was wrong. Then there was the work trip. Emily said she had to fly out to Chicago for a client meeting. She even packed a small suitcase. But when I checked her location on our shared family app, it showed she was still in town. At first, I thought maybe it was a glitch. Technology fails, right? But the app had never been wrong before. The final straw was the birthdays. Emily has always been terrible with dates, but she suddenly remembered every little thing about a new client of hers. She baked cupcakes because it was his birthday. She stayed late at the office to celebrate with the team. Yet when it came to my birthday, she barely managed to pick up a card. That one stung more than I wanted to admit. Her lies weren't clever anymore. They were sloppy, desperate, like she didn't even care if I believed them. And maybe that's what hurt the most, because it meant she had stopped caring about us. I started writing things down. Dates, excuses, little inconsistencies. I told myself I wasn't spying, that I was just keeping track. But really? I was building a case. A case I hoped I'd never need, but deep down, I knew I would. And then came the phone call. A single call that confirmed everything I was too afraid to admit. It happened on a Thursday night. Around 10 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, half watching some mindless TV show, when Emily's phone started buzzing on the coffee table. She was in the shower, so I figured I'd just glance at the screen and see if it was important. The name that flashed across the screen made my blood run cold. It wasn't Mom or Claire or anyone I recognized. It was saved under something stupidly obvious, work client. But the way the phone kept buzzing, again and again, told me this wasn't about work. I didn't answer. Instead, I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a notification popped up, a new voicemail. I stared at it, debating if I should listen. My heart was pounding, my palms sweaty. I knew I was crossing a line, but at this point, I needed answers. I put the phone to my ear. And what I heard shattered me. A man's voice. Low, intimate, familiar in a way that made me sick. "Hey baby, I miss you already. Can't stop thinking about last night. Call me when you can." My chest tightened. My ears were ringing. I replayed it twice just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. But no, it was there, clear as day. My wife wasn't just hiding something. She was hiding someone. When Emily came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, she saw me holding her phone. For a split second, her face went pale. But then she smiled, like nothing was wrong, and asked, "What's up, babe?" I didn't confront her right then. I couldn't. My voice would have given me away. Instead, I handed her the phone, forced a smile, and said, "Nothing, just thought you got an important call." Inside, though, I was already breaking apart. That voicemail changed everything. From that moment on, I wasn't just suspicious, I was determined to catch her red-handed. After hearing that voicemail, there was no going back. My world had cracked open, and the only thing keeping me together was the need to know the full truth. I couldn't just sit there and let her feed me lies anymore. I had to follow my gut. So I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Emily said she was working late again the next evening. Normally, I'd just nod, kiss her goodbye, and spend the night waiting for her to come home. But this time, I decided to test her. I drove to her office around 8 p.m. and parked across the street, far enough not to be noticed but close enough to see the entrance. And I waited. Hours went by, and my heart sank with each passing minute. By 10 p.m., most of the building was dark, and employees were streaming out. But Emily never appeared. Just as I was about to give up, I saw her car. Not pulling out of the office lot, no. It turned the corner from the opposite direction, headlights off, creeping slowly until it parked in a side street. And then I saw him. A man climbing into the passenger seat, kissing her like they'd been doing it forever. My hands clenched the steering wheel so hard I thought it might break. I wanted to slam my car door, run over there, rip him out of the seat, and scream at her. But I froze. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak, they all collided inside me, leaving me paralyzed. Instead, I just sat there in the dark, watching as my wife drove away with another man. That was the moment I knew, this wasn't some emotional fling. This was a full-blown affair. The next time, I promised myself, I wouldn't just watch. I'd be ready to catch them in the act. Once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. My wife kissing another man in her car was burned into my brain, playing on repeat like some cruel movie I never wanted to star in. But I wasn't done, I needed proof. Proof that would destroy every lie she ever told me. So I started tracking her patterns. I noted when she left, how long she was gone, what excuses she gave. I checked receipts, credit card statements, even her gas mileage. And sure enough, things didn't add up. She claimed she was working late, but her car was parked miles away at a hotel. She said she was grabbing dinner with coworkers, but the receipts showed 2 glasses of wine, 2 entrees, and dessert. One night, I finally worked up the nerve to follow her. She thought she was clever, taking a different route, doubling back once or twice like she was checking her tail. But she underestimated me. I kept my distance, headlights off, staying just close enough to see where she was heading. She pulled into that same hotel I'd seen on the credit card statement. My stomach churned as I watched her walk inside, dressed up like she was on a date, not a business meeting. 20 minutes later, the same man from before arrived, casual, comfortable, like this wasn't their first time. I sat there for hours, watching their silhouettes behind the hotel curtains. It was the most humiliating, gut-wrenching night of my life. That's when it hit me, Emily wasn't just cheating. She was living a double life. And I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her cover story. But little did she know, the next time I caught her, I wouldn't be alone. The waiting was killing me. Watching from a distance, collecting scraps of evidence, it wasn't enough anymore. I needed the undeniable, face-to-face truth. And I needed her to know that I knew. So I made a plan. The next Friday, when she claimed she was going out for a late work dinner, I followed again. But this time, I brought my best friend Mark with me. I needed someone else there, not just for support, but as a witness. If things blew up, I didn't want Emily twisting the story to make me look crazy. We parked across from the hotel and waited. Sure enough, at exactly 7:45, Emily's car rolled in. She stepped out in a short black dress, the kind she hadn't worn for me in years. My chest tightened. Minutes later, the same guy arrived. He greeted her with a kiss so casual, so practiced, it made my blood boil. Mark put a hand on my shoulder, whispering, "You ready?" I wasn't. Not even close. But I nodded anyway. Together, we walked into the hotel lobby, trying to keep our composure. The receptionist barely looked up when we asked what room Emily was in. All it took was, "I'm her husband," she left her wallet, and suddenly the number was ours. We stood outside the door, and I could hear them. Laughing. Whispering. The bed creaking. My entire body shook, but I forced myself to stay calm. With one deep breath, I flung the door open. There she was. My wife, tangled in bed sheets with another man, her face frozen in shock. His eyes went wide, and he scrambled for his clothes. Emily stammered, "It's not what it looks like." But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. And in that moment, I had a choice: scream, fight, or walk away. What would you have done? The moment I burst into that room, time seemed to slow down. Emily's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror, while the guy scrambled like a coward trying to grab his pants off the floor. I stood there, my chest heaving, every muscle in my body screaming to explode. But instead of yelling right away, I just stared at her. That silence was louder than any words I could have said. "Daniel, wait, I can explain," Emily stuttered, pulling the sheets tighter around her. "Explain? Explain what? That the man in our bed wasn't me? That her late work nights were nothing but lies?" The guy finally found his voice. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married," but before he could finish, I snapped. "Didn't know?" I barked. "She's been married to me for 7 years. You didn't notice the ring on her finger? Or did she take that off for you too?" Emily started crying, reaching out like she could somehow fix this by touching me. I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. "You lost the right to touch me the second you brought him into our lives." The room was spinning. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Mark stood behind me, tense, ready to step in if things got physical. But instead of punching the guy, which is what every nerve in my body wanted, I turned my fury on Emily. "All those nights you came home late. All those excuses. The voicemail. The lies. This is what it's been about?" My voice cracked, not from rage, but from heartbreak. She sobbed, whispering, "It was a mistake." "No," I said coldly. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This is a choice." And in that hotel room, staring at the woman I thought I knew, I realized the marriage I was fighting for was already gone. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted everyone to know the truth. The car ride home that night was the longest of my life. Emily sat in the passenger seat, silent, staring out the window like a guilty child caught red-handed. I didn't say a word, because every time I opened my mouth, all that came out was rage. When we finally got home, she tried to talk. "Daniel, please, just let me explain." Her voice trembled, but I wasn't interested in hearing another performance. "Explain?" I snapped. "What could you possibly say that would make any of this better? That it was an accident? That you somehow fell into his bed?" She cried harder, insisting it meant nothing, that she still loved me. But her words were hollow. I kept thinking about all the nights she chose him over me, all the times she lied straight to my face. Love doesn't look like that. The lies kept coming. She swore it only happened once, but I had the receipts, the hotel charges, the voicemail, the dates that didn't add up. I laid it all out on the table, each piece of evidence like a dagger cutting through her excuses. Her face crumbled when she realized she couldn't deny it anymore. And still, she tried. I wasn't happy. "You weren't paying attention to me." I felt lonely. Every excuse shifted the blame onto me, as if her betrayal was somehow my fault. That was the moment reality hit me. I had been living in a marriage built on lies while she crafted an alternate life behind my back. And now she wanted me to carry the blame for her choices. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You're not just a liar, Emily. You're a coward. You wanted the safety of a husband and the thrill of a lover. But you can't have both." What she said next didn't just shock me, it made my blood run cold. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep this a secret. My family deserved to know the truth, and frankly, I needed support. I called my sister, Jess, and explained everything, my voice shaking but determined. She immediately dropped what she was doing and came over. Emily, of course, tried to play it cool when she saw Jess enter. But Jess wasn't fooled. She'd known Emily for years and had always sensed something off, though she never expected this. When I laid out the evidence, the hotel receipts, the voicemail, the late-night drives, Jess's expression hardened. "Daniel, you did the right thing. You caught her, and you have proof. Don't let her twist this on you." Then came the hardest part, telling our parents. My mom cried, my dad was furious, but everyone's eyes kept returning to Emily. And here's where it got worse, some of them, my parents included, had secretly suspected something was going on. I could see it in their faces. They were hurt, yes, but also disappointed. Emily tried to explain herself again. She said she was confused, unhappy, lonely. But no one was buying it. My family's eyes weren't filled with sympathy, they were full of judgment. And she realized it. I noticed the shift in her demeanor. She went from arrogance to fear, realizing she no longer controlled the narrative. For once, she couldn't gaslight anyone. Not me, not my family. By the end of that day, alliances were clear. My side was solid. Her side, well, she didn't really have one anymore. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse for her, Emily tried one last desperate move, one that would humiliate her even more. Emily thought she could salvage something by trying to charm our friends, to explain it away as a moment of weakness. But instead, she walked straight into humiliation. I invited a few of our closest friends over that weekend, not to shame her, but to let the truth be out in the open. I laid everything on the table, the hotel receipts, the voicemail, the inconsistencies, even the details of what I saw in the car. I wanted everyone to know exactly what happened, no sugarcoating. Her face went pale the second I mentioned the hotel. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Our friends looked at her, shock mixed with disbelief. One of them finally asked, "Emily, is this true?" She stammered, I can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice calm but sharp. "Explain why you thought lying to everyone was better than being honest? Explain why you chose him over me? Over us?" The room was silent. Even the air seemed heavy. Emily had no answers. Her friends, some who had liked her for years, looked at her differently now. Some quietly stepped back, exchanging looks that said, "I can't believe this." I watched her crumble. For years, she'd been hiding behind a mask of charm and perfection. That mask shattered in front of everyone she knew. The whispers started immediately. The judgment, the disbelief, the betrayal, they all settled on her like a heavy cloak. I realized then that sometimes the universe doesn't need to do anything. Sometimes, the truth humbles people enough on its own. But I wasn't done. Seeing her like that gave me an idea, one that would ensure she'd never forget the consequences of her choices. Watching Emily humiliated in front of our friends felt satisfying, but it wasn't enough. I needed closure. I needed her to feel the full weight of what she had done, not just in front of me, but in every aspect of her carefully constructed life. I spent the next few days thinking, planning, strategizing. I didn't want violence or cruelty for the sake of it, I wanted her to face the truth in a way that would stick. First, I gathered every piece of evidence I had, the hotel receipts, text messages, voicemails, even photos from the night I followed her. I compiled it all into a timeline that left no room for excuses, no loopholes to hide in. Next, I sent a carefully worded message to her family, the friends she'd confided in, and even her colleagues. I didn't embellish or lie, I just told the facts. Plain, undeniable facts. Finally, I decided on the public confrontation. Not on social media, not through gossip, face to face, in a place where she thought she was untouchable, a mutual friends gathering. The night of the gathering, Emily arrived, dressed to impress, expecting smiles and polite conversation. Instead, I calmly presented my evidence to everyone around, making sure each detail landed. Faces went from confusion to shock. Some of her closest allies couldn't believe what they were hearing. She tried to laugh it off, tried to weave excuses, but the truth was too heavy. By the end of the night, Emily was isolated, humiliated, and forced to confront the damage she had caused, not just to me, but to her reputation, her friendships, and the life she thought she controlled. And yet, even with all this, she still wasn't done. The final act of betrayal came when I least expected it. After the public confrontation, life became a storm of chaos and silence. Emily didn't know where to turn, and honestly, neither did I. The house felt empty, though she was still living there, just another ghost roaming through the ruins of our marriage. The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was practical too. Friends I thought we shared vanished, taking sides or quietly distancing themselves. Some reached out to me privately, offering support, while others simply disappeared. It was a sobering reminder that betrayal doesn't just hurt the two people involved, it ripples outward, touching everyone connected. At work, Emily's behavior changed too. Rumors had spread subtly among her colleagues, whispers followed her down hallways. Her confident facade cracked with each passing day. Meanwhile, I found a strange sense of empowerment in my routine. I wasn't happy, not yet, but I was reclaiming control over my life. Even my own emotions were a battlefield. Anger, heartbreak, and betrayal mixed with relief. Relief that the lies were out, relief that I didn't have to wonder anymore. But the void she left behind was enormous, and nights were the hardest. The quiet reminded me of what I had lost, and the betrayal played on repeat in my mind. Yet, through it all, I kept thinking, this was also a chance to rebuild, to redefine my life without someone who had betrayed me so completely. I realized that the fallout, as painful as it was, might be the beginning of something stronger. Just when I thought I was moving forward, Emily made one last desperate move, something that threatened to undo everything I had fought to reclaim. Weeks passed, and Emily finally moved out, leaving behind a trail of broken trust and unanswered questions. The house, once filled with laughter and shared memories, now felt eerily silent. Every corner reminded me of her betrayal, yet at the same time, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I had choices ahead of me: stay broken, consumed by anger and heartbreak, or start over and reclaim my life. I chose the latter. Slowly, I began to rebuild, reconnecting with friends I had neglected, pursuing hobbies I had abandoned, and even taking time for myself, something I had rarely done while wrapped up in the marriage. But starting over wasn't easy. Memories haunted me, and sometimes the anger flared up unexpectedly, triggered by the smallest things: a song we once loved, an empty chair at the dinner table, a familiar sentence. Each time, I reminded myself that healing takes patience, and revenge or dwelling in the past wouldn't fix anything. I also reflected on what went wrong. I realized that love, no matter how strong, cannot survive deceit. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild completely. Emily's choices taught me a harsh lesson: sometimes, the best way to protect yourself is to walk away before the lies consume you entirely. Even as I took my first steps toward a new life, a part of me couldn't help but wonder, had I truly seen the last of the lies, or was there still more waiting to surface? The final twist was closer than I imagined, and it would leave me questioning everything once again. It didn't take long for karma to make its entrance. A few weeks after Emily moved out, I heard from mutual friends that the man she had been seeing had disappeared from her life, and not in a good way. Rumors swirled about him being exposed at work, losing credibility, and being publicly humiliated by people he had trusted. Emily had no one to blame but herself. Meanwhile, Emily tried to start a new life, but every effort felt hollow. The trust she had burned, the bridges she had torched, and the lies she had woven followed her wherever she went. People who had once admired her were now skeptical, distant, and unwilling to give her the benefit of the doubt. As for me, life slowly started to feel normal again. I focused on healing, building a new routine, and surrounding myself with people who truly cared. Each day reminded me that even though the betrayal cut deep, resilience and patience could help reclaim what was lost: peace of mind, dignity, and self-respect. Looking back, I realized one thing clearly: betrayal may shatter your world, but it also reveals who you really are and what you're capable of. Emily's choices destroyed her life in ways she could never have predicted, while I learned that standing strong, facing the truth, and walking away can be more powerful than any revenge. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for the next drama. Was I wrong for how I handled it? Who do you think was the real villain here, her, him, or the situation itself?